books. Some read them and some don't. Most of them are 10 out of 10 and most aren't. And that's what we're talking about today. I have here in front of me 7 great books you should read before you die. This video is not sponsored, and I will be including comic books which I think are really good and can give you really valuable life lessons. And be sure to stick around to the last one, because that's the best one in my opinion. So kicking off the list, we got Ultimate Spider-Man. Now I know what you're thinking.
He's a nerd, he reads Spider-Man comics.
But honestly, I think you should read this because it has a lot of great messages, especially if you're on self-improvement, because it talks about Spider-Man's origin story, or at least an alternate origin story, where he didn't get bit by the spider until much later on in his life, when he was in his late 30s, and he has kids with MJ. But it turns out he's a good guy, and it's the media that's printing him out as this awful dickhead, the world. Oh, and everyone thinks that Iron Man is a villain and that he did this awful terrorist attack on who killed all these people and ruined all these lives. And he's the one who gets the spider and the spider suit to Peter, so then he can become Spider-Man. Number 2, another comic, Batman: Last Night on Earth. And Gotham, or at least what's left of Gotham, has been taken over by this guy called Omega, or more or less it's a post-apocalyptic story. People are still alive, they're not really living a good life, they're not thriving, they're more so surviving. Now this particular Batman story is set after the end of the world, so Batman has to take him out. And I think it's a good story because it talks about the end of the world and after that, but yet he still manages to save the day. And I think it just goes to show that failure is really just a mindset. And number 3, we got The Millionaire Fastlane. And it is possible to get rich quickly, despite all the clickbait ads that says, oh, get rich quick, get rich in a month, blah 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 blah. But not only that, it talks about getting rich quickly, being rich in your 20s versus being rich in your 80s. I think it speaks for itself. It's an entrepreneurial book, because the author in this book says that what the true scammers mean by that is get rich easy instead of get rich quick. Obviously it is really easy to get rich however you like, however way you like, including getting rich quickly. And that's why I really like this book. This and another entrepreneurial book have inspired me to write my own book. It talks about the author. It's basically a biography in some areas, where he grew up in Hawaii during the 50s. Now the 4th and other book I was talking about is Rich Dad, Poor Dad, but more on that on the end of the video. And his dad's friend was really rich and his biological father was poor. So anyways, one day the author goes up to the rich dad and he asks, hey, how can I get rich? And he gives them this beautiful message. And they did make a few dollars from that, but they had to stop because these bullies were getting in and picking on the other kids. But he was telling the rich dad all about it, and he said, yeah, that's a good business model, because you didn't necessarily have to be there for it to work. You just had to make sure people knew about it, people were coming there, and it was functioning. Because later on in the book they go on to start their own comic book library, since back then comic book magazines were popular and very cheap, of not working for the money and instead letting the money work for you. Now the 5th book, this one is really close to my heart because it talks about Bruce Lee, and this is Be Water My Friend by Bruce Lee's daughter. And it's about all the teachings and philosophies of Bruce Lee, and it goes into depth about his famous quote, the be water my friend. It talks about being adaptable to whatever situation you're in, whatever place you're in, whatever mindset you're in, and to not be like, all rigid, like, and just like flow with the way of things, with nature and stuff. Like, sorry, not nature, like just the general sort of flow of things. Like, just go with the flow. I know that sounds like hippie bullshit, but like, just relax and go with the flow, and just be pliable to your environment. Book number 5 is an interesting one. I'm still reading it. I haven't finished it yet. A rich guy actually recommended this to me, and he got rich from these principles in this book. And it is none other than Think and Grow Rich. Basically talks about the mindset of becoming rich, and like how we go about things and how we can sort of make what we see into reality. And I know it sounds like mystical bullshit, but it's true. And if a rich guy was telling me about it, then I guess it is true. Plus, there is loads of evidence that the principles in this book are 100% true. And I'm already applying the principles in this book, and let me say, they're pretty good. And last, very not least, back in the beginning of this video, well, near the beginning, I said I was inspired to write my own book. Now, it's not an entrepreneurial book, it's a fantasy coming of age book. It's also a self-help book, and it is The Spartan Spirit, a Modern Legend by Marco Duggan. See, that's me right there. And talks about this kid called Leo. He's half Irish, half Italian, living in Dublin. He's, a normal kid. He's like, in the beginning, he's 13 years old, and he goes about life like nothing interesting happens. He goes home, plays video games, eats junk food, jacks off. Typical teenager stuff. But then one day, a Spartan shows up and he trains him to become the best. Not only he can see the Spartan, and only he can talk to him. And so it leaves you wondering, is he crazy? Is he an avatar or something? What's going on? You can find it on Blurb. I have a link down below, and you can also find it on Amazon as well as an ebook. I'll also have the Amazon linked down below. And yeah, that's about it. Think limitless.